Dear you. Growing up, every Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday evening, we went to church. On Sundays, my mother would put a pot roast in the oven in the morning, and by the time the Sunday school and the church sermon was over, the roast and potatoes and carrots and onions would have all cooked down to an amazing deliciousness. Our family would eat Sunday lunch together and talk about the sermon, the people we saw at church, and the pot roast. My mother made my sister and me help with setting the table, serving the food, and cleaning up afterwards. My sister and I didn't like that so much because we had to do that work and my brother didn't, just because we were girls. My mother would say, "Now you girls clear the table and then get in here and dry the dishes." And we would dutifully start scraping plates and stacking. And though I knew it wasn't fair, I also knew my mother wouldn't tolerate me saying anything about it. I also remember one day in high school, my high school sweetheart asked me, "What are you planning on doing after you graduate from college?" "Well, I'll probably get married and have kids." And he said, "Well, now that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." What? I was shocked. I had never questioned what I always knew to be my designated lot in life. I would go to college and get married and have kids. But that was the first time I thought about myself as being able to do something else. There was also something else. I found girls more interesting than boys. They just were. All this while my father was telling queer jokes, like two queers walked into a straight bar. And the preacher's wife said in a Sunday school session for us teenagers, "Now, if anyone here is homosexual, please raise your hand and we're going to pray for you to get better." I realized there were messages all around me that told me how to be. Like, a young lady doesn't talk like that. Girls don't play those sports. Young ladies are supposed to let the men handle things. And it was clear I needed to fit into the expectations of others. So you can see why I became very good at going along to get along. Going along to get along. It means I'll go along with you so you'll get along with me. So you'll accept me as being okay. I used to proudly describe myself that way. I'm the kind of person who goes along to get along. Until I heard someone say to me once, "Oh, so that means you're not likely to tell your truth to the world." And I said, "What do you mean? I always thought going along to get along was basically being a nice person." And it is in a way, and I had never questioned it. In fact, I used to pray to God every Sunday. "God, I promise I'll stop thinking about Janet Burns or Holly Rogers or whichever girl I had a crush on at the time. But by Tuesday, that promise would be broken." I dated guys, I talked about boyfriends, and there was one time when I felt I was about to be found out that I even told a queer joke myself. And I got married. My husband had no idea. I wasn't really being my true self. I was going along to get along. In fact, I hid my secret until I was 24 years old. And then something happened. Someone invited me to a gay bar. I wasn't sure then, but I went and, hey, wait a minute. This is great. All these people, they're all gay. They're like me. For the first time in my life, I really felt I could be me. I'm not alone. I could live my life as I am. And as soon as I realized that, I also realized there was one person who I really needed to feel the same way. I decided I had to tell my mom. There was one complication. That someone who took me to the bar was my brother, Dean. So it turns out it can run in the family. I told Dean I was going to come out to our mother, and I told him that Mother was going to ask about him, so what would he like me to say when she did? She's not going to ask about me. Yes, she is. No way, no way. And that's going to be her first question. So one Friday afternoon, I drove to Charlotte, North Carolina to tell my mother I was gay. I was a little fearful, and I hesitated at first. But once I told her, she looked me in the eye and said, "Cathy, you're my daughter. You'll always be my daughter, and I'll always love you." No, that's not what happened. I told her, "Mother, I'm gay." And her first question was, "What about Dean?" Yep, him too. Her next question was, "Where does it say in the Bible that that's okay?" I told her, the Bible says love one another. And it doesn't say love one another as long as they're the same color or as long as they're different genders. It just says love one another. She cried. She didn't blame me. She blamed herself. She asked me if I had talked to a psychologist. I had. She asked me if I had talked to a doctor. I had. And both had said that being true to myself was the healthiest way to live. She cried and basically gave me the cold shoulder the rest of the weekend. When I left on Sunday afternoon for the drive back home, she said to me, "Now I know you told me, and I wish you hadn't, and I don't want to ever hear about it again." Later, I found out that she told my brother that she wished I had told her that we had cancer rather than that we were gay. Over the next 2 years, I finished MBA school and moved to New York City. And I never raised the topic again, although the silence was troubling to me. I had started on the journey of telling my truth, of stepping into my authentic self. And when on our weekly calls, she asked a question like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I would tell her the truth. "Margaret and I are going to the Catskill Mountains to ski," or whatever it was. But whenever I mentioned my girlfriend's name to my mother, she would end the call by saying, "Well, I gotta go now." It was always the same. "Well, I gotta go now." So I don't know what it was on that one Sunday afternoon. She had just asked me about what I was doing over the weekend, and I had just told her, "We're going to see the opening of Cats on Broadway." My mother began to sigh, and I cut in and said, "Wait." I hadn't planned on saying this, but the words just came out. "Mother, I don't want to hear you say that you love me ever again, because it's clear you don't really love me. You love this image of me that you have in your mind, but it's not me and it never will be me. My mother said, "Well, I think I've come a long way since you told me." I don't think you've come any way at all. You didn't want to hear about it then, and you don't want to hear about it now. Mother, I want you to be clear about the choice you're making and the ultimate result of it. Because I'm pretty certain that if we continue like this, 5 years from now, we'll be talking maybe once or twice a year about everything except what matters. And you're not really going to be a part of my life. And that was the day, 41 years ago, that my relationship with my mother changed. Actually, when I was growing up, I wasn't really so close to my mother. Now is very different, though. My mother and I talk on Skype every day, even though she still lives on the other side of the planet in Charlotte, North Carolina. I know what she has for dinner each night. She knows what I do each day. And we talk about everything, especially what's important. Telling her about my real self was the very best thing for me to do. I'm not carrying around fear, and in fact, I've developed great confidence from the decisions I started making years ago to be myself. I made choices to step into what was right for me, including creating a real, authentic connection with Margaret, the person who has been my life partner for 36 years this past Sunday. We all have hidden truths, things that our society or culture or religion or laws say is not okay and that we should feel shame and be embarrassed about. The boy who likes ballet dancing and also knows his dad is ashamed of him. The woman who loves someone from a different background or ethnicity or religion or race and can't tell her family. The girl who is being molested by her uncle or grandfather for the past few years. The man whose dad gambled away the family money and left nothing for him or his mother to live on. We all have some hidden truths, things we feel we can't really tell anyone about. Even like how we feel when our mother-in-law yells at us, or even how small we feel when our boss dismisses what we say. Now, the reason I'm writing you this is that I learned 3 things along this journey to living my most authentic self, and I'd like to share them with you. They're about the how. 3 lessons about how to create more fulfilling, meaningful, and authentic connections, and how to create the space for others to do the same. Lesson number 1. Accept yourself as you are. See and accept yourself exactly as you are. This means not listening to the requirements and rules of others. It means not believing other people's beliefs that some people are okay and others are not. It means choosing your own path. It means listening to your own heart and accepting the fact that often other people sometimes go along to get along as well. You can choose your own path. See and accept yourself as you are. Lesson number 2, have that challenging conversation. When you decide to create the possibility of meaningful or authentic connections, there is always at least one challenging conversation to be had. As you unmask yourself, you will face challenges. I had a very challenging and painful conversation with my husband and his mother before I left him. I had a challenging conversation with my mother and with my sister. You just can't get around this. When we reveal ourselves, Sometimes others feel hurt. When we've lived a life with less than honesty, and then we step into truth, it means telling someone that we're not what they used to think. It can be a hard conversation, but mostly because of the fear that we might lose what little connection we have with that person. The fear is that they might not want to have a real connection with us. They might prefer connecting with our mask instead. So it's not easy. But telling our truth is the only way to open the possibility for a meaningful, authentic, fulfilling connection. My suggestion is take a deep breath and say the words. You say it not because it's easy. You say it because it's authentic. It is who you truly are, what you truly believe. So have that challenging conversation. And lesson number 3, be the gift of authenticity. When you tell your truth, whether it's your opinions, feelings, or deeper truths, you are giving the other person a gift, the gift of honesty, which is a sign of trust and the possibility of a real, authentic connection with you. The alternative is to cut those loved ones off from any possibility of a real connection with you, to treat them with disrespect, to deny them the opportunity to be bigger than we think they can be. It is to withhold ourselves from people we care about, like I'm not letting them in. They have the right to respond positively or negatively, but when we don't offer them the option, there's no possibility of real contact, because they're only connecting with our mask, not with us. This is also how we make it safe for others to be themselves, giving the gift of authenticity. When others see we're accepting and comfortable with ourselves, they often find it safer to accept themselves. And life is easier since there's no wasted energy putting up a front. So I want to ask you, what is your challenge? What are you working to hold in? What is keeping you from creating more meaningful connections, from sharing your views, feelings, and opinions? And what is one small step you could take that would create a little bit more freedom for yourself, a little bit more respect for who you are? So I invite you to step into this. Accept yourself as you are. Have that challenging conversation and be the gift of authenticity. When you move into greater authenticity, it's life-changing, it's life-giving. As always, with love and respect, your friend, Cathy.